iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. Let me tell you, what a thrilling conversation we are going to have today. In this time of children having a voice and having a say, kids trying to run your household, trying to tell you who you are, how to spend your money, when to drive your car, when to take them to various events, let me tell you, our households are out of balance, and today we're going to set the record straight. I am delighted to invite our guest in today to really talk to us on a very substantive level about how to keep peace in the home, how to have balance in the home, and how all of us cannot go crazy. I'm delighted to invite in today Pastor J.T. Johnson, Mocha Lee, Dondre Whitfield, and Stacey Owens. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Dr. J.
Hey. Let me tell you, I feel like we're just kind of jumping right into where we left off last week. And I know that our audience that was watching, they had plenty to say. When we think about our households and what we're doing, where do you think in this time, let me just say, I know that this day and age is different. Kids are grown, and even more grown at very early ages. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries. I'm going to start with Mocha Lee. Mocha, where do you think we need to have boundaries, and at what age do we begin to set them?
Boundaries are just so important because I think we just live in an age where, and I'm just going to speak for myself because I have 2 daughters. One is 9, one is 13. It's just, I feel like I want to provide for them, but sometimes I err on the side of spoiling. So in order not to spoil my girls, I'm like, okay, how can I set these boundaries? How can I set these boundaries? And one thing that's important in our house is that my husband and I both team up and are always on the same page. We're on one accord so that if I say no to my daughter, you cannot attend a certain event, if she goes to her dad, he's going to say the very same thing so that they cannot play off of us. We need to set the boundaries as early as possible. I'm talking about elementary school, because it's just important for them to know if we love you, it's because we need to say no to certain things, because everything is not for you. You're not supposed to do everything that your friends do. You're definitely not supposed to do everything you see on TikTok. Please.
Oh, Lordy. We're going to definitely be having that TikTok conversation, because social media does seem to be taking over our children's lives. Pastor JT, where are the boundaries and when do we set them?
I honestly agree with Mocha. I believe that the earlier the better, because I believe our children are a direct reflection of the home system or the village that they come from. Mm-hmm. So if there are no boundaries at home, then there are no boundaries at school, and there are no boundaries at church. And so then the expectation is that if I'm able to do it and there is no correction that is brought forth in the home, then I buck the system in a sense, or I rebel against correction outside. So I believe that those boundaries are definitely necessary, and kind of really looking at the framework of ensuring that we are providing the healthiest environment for our children. I understand about giving them a voice, as you mentioned, Dr. Jackie, but I also will say as well, when we look at their voices should always be in line with the boundaries. So even if they are given an opportunity to have a voice about a subject or an issue or a situation, it still is in line with the boundaries. It's kind of like the will of God. We understand that as long as we ask inside of the will, then it's favorable for us. Now, when we step outside the will, then we have to, kind of get disciplined back inside of the will. So I believe that it goes the same in our home.
Thank you for sharing that. This is a little bit of transparency, you guys, because I'm going to have to say, I was that kid. If I was at someone's house and they would say, would you jump on the couch at your mama's house? Yeah, when she's not looking. So I was definitely one of those rule breakers. We got to jump on the furniture. We got to jump in the bed. We got to have pillow fights. And I think that's a part of knowing boundaries for being a kid. It's like, be a child when you can be a child. Stacey, when you're thinking about from the education perspective, and even as kids get older in age, what type of boundaries should parents be setting, and how do they walk them out so that it does marry with the home and the school?
So for me, I always say that parents should set the boundaries of what it should look like in their home, but be mindful of the fact that your child is not always at home. You spend a lot of your time in the school environment. So what are the boundaries for how we should interact at school as well? Because one of the number one things that I hear from kids is they'll say, well, my mama said, and I'm always like, well, okay. Yes, your mama at home, you can do this, but at school, you shouldn't be handling conflict by choosing to hit back. Here's some of the boundaries that you need to understand at when you're in the school environment. And then moving past that, I say at school, I always see our kids have because they have so many responsibilities at home of taking care of the family and helping out with the things that's going on at home, that they have a hard time choosing what should they do in the school life. Because when I go home, I have to take care of my sister and my brother, or I have to do this. So school is like second nature. And I think you should, as a parent, you should set the boundary straight at birth, that the only expectation that you should have between the ages of birth to 19 is your job is to go to school. Mm-hmm. Your job is to be successful in having an experience, a childhood experience. And then how do you learn the ways of developing into adulthood? And that should come naturally or organically through your experiences that you are receiving in your childhood and the experiences that your parents are setting up for you, so that you can, move into that when it's developmentally appropriate. So boundaries are very important, because that line between home and school can easily be crossed when kids are so used to doing the things that are set at home.
Wow, that information is so enlightening, because oftentimes it's difficult, to separate those things. Like you said, my mama said, my daddy said, or my granny lets me do it this way. And oftentimes we get that level of pushback. Dondre, you have children at different stages of growth and development. And tell us about the boundaries and guidelines that you've set in motion, and ones that you believe as you mentor young boys.
Yeah, I think just in talking about the boys, and we talked a little bit about this last week, what I do with my son, I've often said that I am the drill instructor for manhood for my son. And there are times when, because my wife is doing her job as a nurturer, whenever she sees my son uncomfortable and hurting from that space of discomfort, what she wants to do is she wants to step in on his behalf and take away that painful moment for him. But what I constantly have to remind her is that when you take away that moment of discomfort, when you take away that pain, you're taking away his opportunity for growth. As I've said before, there's a reason why they don't let moms go to boot camp. I am preparing my son for the battles ahead. And those things can't be done in a space of comfort. Kings are not built in comfort. Kings are built in crisis. And so what I have to do is I have to allow my son to be exposed to safe levels of crisis so that he will learn how to properly navigate them. And when he's going the wrong way, I am nearby so that I can guide him when it's appropriate. In speaking about my daughter, who's 17 years old, one of the things that we talked about this at the top, we even talked about this before, we opened, talked about giving our children a voice, because many of us, as we were children or in our adolescence, we were voiceless. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to give our children a voice. The problem is, as parents, is that we haven't properly navigated that, because what we've done in giving our children a voice is that we've given them the false impression that they have a say. So recently, my wife and I were talking about something that our daughter, who's 17 years old, was trying to go to a party, maybe do a sleepover. We don't do sleepovers if we don't know child and parent. So I immediately went to my wife. We were both in agreement. And then, of course, once my daughter got the word, then she went and made a call to mom. Now that set her off into another space. And then all of a sudden, my wife and I began to get off page. We began to go off script, right? And so again, this was her feeling like, because she had a say, she went to one parent, the other parent goes to the other parent, and then now we've disrupted the entire house. And that is something that is really fast and furious when it comes to parenting nowadays. I always tell my kids, look, I am your navigation system. I am your Waze. There are certain freeways that you shouldn't be on. And our job is to get you to see at specific points in your life while you're in our home, don't go down this freeway, because it's going to hurt you in the long run.
Wow. Thank you. Man, what a mouthful. You know, as we're navigating how we balance our families and our parenting styles, and I know y'all gonna add me, y'all gonna add Dondre, y'all gonna add Stacy and add Mocha, and y'all gonna add Pastor JT, and we're ready for it, because at the end of the day, our goal and responsibility is to help others discover how to balance all of the nuances of the things that we face. When we come back after the break, I want to spend some time talking about something Dondre just mentioned. How do you balance having a voice versus having a say? I know it wreaks a lot of havoc in everybody's home, and it does create contention. When we're back after the break.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years.
We got iPhone 13s too. Switched 2 minutes ago, literally right before this.
iPhone 13 on us on any unlimited plan for every customer, with plans starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. And this conversation we're having today, not only is it going to bless you, it's going to help you move the needle in some of the areas where you have been stuck. Let me tell you, having conversations with your kids, your mate, your significant other, whatever that dynamic of your home may be, this conversation on how to balance our kids having a voice versus a say is one that tears and rips families apart. I'm mad at mama. I'm mad at daddy. I'm mad at granny. I'm going to run away from home. I'm throwing the phone against the wall. Kids and parents alike are losing their mind. Welcome back, everybody, because this conversation that we're about to have right now, oh, my goodness, you know, talking about a Pandora's box, you know, that Pandora's box really does get open, you guys, when you think about, you know, what is the difference between having a voice and having a say. And I'm going to start with Stacy, because she's in a school setting. And in that setting, sometimes kids want to pop off at the teacher like they're a parent or a sibling. Stacy?
So we got to put this in a frame box. I always tell my kids, you do have a voice. And we are interested in hearing what you have to say. But now let's set the expectation and the tone that giving you the opportunity to use your voice, allowing the adults around you to hear and respect what you have to say, but the final say comes from the adult, because we're the ones that have to make sure that what you're asking for is going to yield the best results for you in the end, even when you don't understand it at that moment. So just because we allow you to be part of the conversation, it doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is going to be 100% the way that you feel it should be. But you can't feel like you wasn't heard. So I want to hear you, but you have to understand that you also have to hear what the adults in your life are asking and presenting to you as well. So I think for us, it starts with teaching effective modes of communication. How do you be an active listener? How do you be an active sharer of the news? And then when it comes down to making the decisions, how can you come to that space of respecting whatever final decision has to be made?
So let me ask you a follow-up question, because that social emotional engagement in that point at the school level is where a lot of that is taught. This is not saying that parents are not equipped to understand social emotional engagement, but you see it a lot at school where kids just sort of zone out when they feel like they're being talked at versus being talked to. And I know I see it a lot of time in the grocery store. Parents are just wailing on their kids and not giving them good instruction. Stacey, how do you fix that? Or what way can you help navigate the conversation for parents to be open to their kids and kids to be open with their parent?
I think a lot of times the talking at part comes when parents feel like I've shared what I needed to share. And I don't know if you've had this experience before, but I've had it with my personal son. We can be in a conversation, the end result is given and they don't like it. And so they'll come back and they'll ask you the same question 100 different ways. And that form of manipulation comes in because they think if they keep coming at you in different ways, eventually you'll get tired and you'll give up and you'll fall to what they want. And that happens in a lot of households. So what I had to do for my son is I had to say, you know what? This is a non-negotiable. I taught him that word. So now we can go back and forth. We can talk. But when I said this is non-negotiable, he knew that once we got to non-negotiable status, it didn't matter how many different flowerable ways that he came back and changed it and asked it and re-asked it and just keep going until he got under my skin. I wasn't going to move from the final decision that was made. And so I think it comes again with setting that role as parent and child, you know? So at the end of the day, it's my final responsibility to make sure that I'm parenting you. I'm not your friend. I'm listening to what you have to say, but at the end of the day, when a decision is made, that's what I'm going to stand on. And as a child, you have to learn how to respect that. So I think establishing the roles between what should be expected in the child's role and what should be expected in an adult role is where we should begin with that. But that goes all the way around. I can't have the expectation for my son to play the role of a man. And then when it comes to the things that he desire, I have to come back and be a parent and expect him to be able to process the difference between the two. I have to make sure across the board he's in that role or was in that role of a child and hold him there.
This level of conversation that we're having right now really does pique my interest a lot more. And I want to ask Pastor JT a couple of questions related to something Stacey just said about dealing with boys. And she did. She said something related to no matter how many times he flowers up what he has to say, it's all the sweetness, the batting of the puppy dog eyes and the sugar coating, you know, just to see if I can push those buttons or if I can play. And this is a real thing, you guys, you know, your kids can play you. So Pastor JT, how do we help our parents in a variety of settings begin to understand that our kids can have a voice and a say, but parents sometimes need to put their foot down in a way that doesn't, I want to say this delicately, I want to train the child up in the way they should go, but I also don't want to kill the spirit. How do we navigate those nuances of dealing with our children and helping them have a voice and a say that's respectful and responsible?
That's a good question, Dr. Jackie. I will start by saying, I think what the danger is. So I guess if I put my counseling hat on and try to dig into this a little bit deeper. So if we're talking about children, right? So the majority of children now have been birthed by millennials, because by definition, a millennial is someone that was born in 1980. So me, Jamel Johnson, a 42-year-old man, by definition, I am a millennial. So the generation that came in and we were on the cusp of everything that's new. So we didn't come in on a Good Times Family. We didn't even come in on an Archie Bunker Family, where we saw the two parent model. Many of us came in on the back end. The father had been taken out of the home. This was right on the rise of the crack epidemic. So much was happening in our inner city communities that we were shuffled around from home to home. Mother probably worked one or two jobs, maybe was raised by our grandparents who really weren't as hands-on as they would have been with their children. So we were kind of latchkey kids. We were, the ones that defined that. We actually started that trend. So a lot of us in this block, we raised ourselves. So that's why we have rationalized, well, I don't want to do what was done to me. So I want to give my child a voice because I didn't have a voice. This is the same generation that said, well, I don't want to force my children to go to church. I'll let them make that decision. And so now we're dealing in a time where we are seeing a huge falling away from the church. But all of this is a byproduct from some of the things that were standards in a generation before that have become optional in this generation, which probably will be obsolete in the next generation. Because now, if you think about it, you have a millennial parent who is competing with their child doing dances on TikTok. So then now what example does this child who will at some point be a mother or a father have? And I think the most thing that has happened is that we have allowed the waters to get murky with parenting. We have romanticized the parent to where now I am treating my child as if this was my significant other, or we have dropped down from the romantic stage to the friendship stage that I don't want to do too much to make them mad because that's my friend. So I think the very first thing is shoring up that parental role. But then that may go all the way back to asking the question, was that parent ever parented? I'm a part of the 100 Black Men of America, and our motto is what they see is what they'll be. So if we are talking about a generation of latchkey kids that are now parents, if the only thing that they saw was a key and a mirror, they're looking at themselves. And so they don't even have a picture of what a healthy parental relationship looks like.
All right, I can already tell that this is going to be a two-parter in this segment because I have to bring Dondre in because there's something that Pastor JT just said about the relationship that boys have with their moms is different. And you guys have heard us talk about this a lot of times. But there is a term that's going around, and we've heard it all of our lives. And now that we're older, we actually see more of what it means. Pastor JT just said that oftentimes that relationship between a boy and his mother can cross over boundaries. We've talked about boundaries. We understand what they can be. But when we think about it in the context of who's in control, there is a phrase, man of the house. And I want to dive into that just a moment so we can set the tone for our next segment. But right now, Dondre, this whole notion and idea of having a voice versus having a say, when it comes to boys who have been placed in that role of man in the house, that can be extremely toxic on a variety of levels. Can you talk to us a little bit about what we mean when we say man of the house, and how do we begin to draw some lines in the sand of helping parents and other adults coming around this young man be able to navigate his life?
Yeah, I talked about this in my book and made the acronym MOTH, Man of the House. Too many of us as young males have been robbed of our boyhood because we're immediately projected into manhood. Now you are the man of the house. Okay, well, let's examine that for a second. That child is going to be saying to themselves, what does that mean? What does it mean for me to be the man of the house? Okay, well, let's dive into that. He doesn't have a say because he just doesn't. She's saying you are the man of the house, but she will not give him a say ultimately in how the household is functioning, right? As she shouldn't, because he isn't worthy of that yet based on the kind of wisdom that he doesn't possess. Okay, then let's go a little further. He will now get spoken to in a very specific way as a child because he is. So now he begins to think that being a man in a household means that I am spoken to as a child. I'm spoken down to. There is constant strife. Sometimes there is verbal and physical abuse, sometimes emotional abuse. I don't have a say. So now as he grows up, he says, wow, it really isn't a great thing for me to be the man of the house because none of this feels good. None of this looks like it's something that I don't really matter, right? And so we begin to walk those things out. As Pastor Jay said, look, what he sees, he will be. So if he sees his role is diminished in the house, he begins to learn that he doesn't have to do much because the household operates without him. And so many of our males never learn how to matriculate into manhood because no one ever taught him what his role is. They just gave him a title without teaching him how to function truly under the guise of that title. And when Pastor Jay talked about, and I love just talking about this role as friends, as parents, we want to be our child's friend. Listen, let me tell you something. When your child is under your roof, they cannot be your friend because you have to be the parent. We can only be friends. If you are my biological child, we can only be friends when you're an adult, when you move out of my house, and you are taking care of yourself on your own. We can have a friendship at that point. But when you live under my roof, we can be friendly, but we can't be friends.
Now that's a definition. You've mentioned a couple of things that really do leap off of the page from the psychology standpoint of being able to separate and identify. When you were talking, Dondre, one of the movies that popped into my head was Crooklyn. And I think that we all cringed at Spike Lee's movie that after the mother passed away, that young girl at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10 was thrust into the role of having to be the cook, the cleaner, having to, try to get her homework, trying to make sure her daddy wasn't sick. There were just a host of things that were thrust onto them. And we caught that as women, but oftentimes we don't see that same type of understanding when it comes to our boys, because we say our boys need to be tough. They need to get in there and get it done. What fallacy is wrapped around making our boys be men too soon?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked me that. Here's what happens. Immediately, you think that you're encouraging him to be a man. What you don't understand is that you're robbing him of his humanity. That's a big one. Our boys, our young boys are walking around often. You might see them, they might have a zombie-like look in their eyes because they have been given all this responsibility with no tools. They've been given all this responsibility without any teachers. So you give a human being responsibility without teachers and tools, and you are going to see what we see in Chicago, what we see in Los Angeles, what we see in cities all across this country, where young black males are not monsters, they're just looking for love. See, we think that when our boys go to gangs, that they are looking to be the monsters that they are. They're just lost human beings searching for love. And when they see that someone loves them enough to kill someone for them, to them, that's the ultimate sign of love. Wait a minute, my biological parent doesn't love me enough to even come around to see me. And you mean to tell me that you love me enough to kill someone for me? That's the ultimate sign of love and respect. Right? Because they don't have a true definition. They don't have a working definition. So when we sit there and we give them all this purpose. We give them all this assignment. Without the teachers and the tools, we are robbing them of their humanity. They skip right over. Look at our brother Michael Jackson, right? Immediately we saw as an adult, he had all of these things that he did that was very boyish, very boy-like. Why? Because he was robbed of his boyhood. He was working as a boy. He didn't get a chance to play. Now, many people say, well, look at the money that he got. And that's, again, where we rob our children of their humanity. We begin saying that this life really is about money as opposed to us growing as human beings and ultimately coming into our manhood in a safe way.
Coming into manhood in a safe way. When we're back after the break, we're going to pick up on this conversation. We'll be right back in a moment.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years.
We got iPhone 13s too. Switched 2 minutes ago, literally right before this.
iPhone 13 on us on any unlimited plan for every customer, with plans starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. I hope that you are taking notes and getting all these wisdom keys. I want to bring everybody back in for this next segment because as we're talking about our boys, this conversation really brought me to Mocha because Mocha, you're raising girls. And when you think about the kind of young men and how they're being raised and the pool that may be available to your daughters, does it give you pause when you think about where this future son-in-law may come from?
Ooh, that's good. That's good. What I love is that Brother Dondre and even Pastor Jay have mentioned this word love, because I'm here to tell you, when I read the book, The 5 Love Languages, I believe that author is Chapman. If we as parents, when they're itty bitty babies, and I hope some of your viewers have the little ones in the house, if we could figure out our child's love language, whether it's a son or a daughter, and fill them up in their particular language. For example, one of my daughters is feel in touch. If you hugging her and rubbing her, she feels loved. And if that's not my love language, which it's not, then I better figure it out and give her that so that she does feel it. And then she's confident, because confidence is a big deal. If you feel loved and you feel confident, then you're able to give that same thing out. If you don't have it, then you have the issues that we were just hearing Brother Dondre talk about, where, you're searching for love in all the wrong places. So I just feel like if my daughters are confident enough because they've had their love tanks filled up, then and they have that awareness that mommy and daddy love them, no matter what, whether they get married or not, we have their back. Then it helps them make those wise decisions. I never want them to feel desperate when it comes time for that mate. I just, I want them to have learned from watching us that, mommy is strong and confident, but guess what? She's daddy's helpmate. And sometimes she lets daddy go ahead and take the lead. And what he says is what we're all going to do, even if I'm rolling my eyes a little bit. But I just feel like daughters need to see it, sons need to see it, and they need to feel it. They need to feel the love, because the thing I don't like as a health and fitness professional is stress. I don't want the children to feel stress. I don't want the parents to feel stressed. I mean, of course, some stress is healthy, but just not on an ongoing basis, because it's toxic. And you have to have the love to offset the stress. You have to have other ways of showing your children how to offset stress. Of course, I'm going to say working out, but you just have to show your children that so that when they get out here, they're making good decisions. And like you said, when I'm thinking about, my girls will grow up and these are the guys they're going to have to pick from, as husbands, I'm like, phew, yes, it's a little scary, honestly, yeah. But I think ultimately it's going to be all right.
Okay, so for a balanced question for you, for somebody that does not like stress, so what's the age that you and your husband have decided your daughter can date?
Oh my gosh, have we even talked about it? Here she is, 14, going to high school in the fall, and we haven't even, it's like we don't even want to deal with, that's sad. Dr. Jackie, why did you put me on the spot? Because we're over here in denial.
I'm trying to help you get balanced. Look, I'm trying to help you get balanced early because you already know there's going to be the junior dance. Somebody's going to want to ask her to their senior prom. It's going to be a host of things that she goes into high school that you're going to have to deal with. And these are the kind of conversations, we need to sit around our dinner tables or sit around the tray tables or do a campfire, whatever it is families are doing. If we're going to teach our boys how to communicate and relate with girls, then they need to come in an environment where they feel comfortable, where parents are around or some other adult that can give them the guidance and the direction for the protocol, if you will. I'm going to ask Stacey this question, and I'm going to come to the guys, because Stacey, when you do think about this, is going to be a protocol question for everybody. So Stacey, your kids are in a co-ed environment. How do you see them interacting one with another when they're just in their general setting and not necessarily in a classroom? Are they being polite? Are they holding doors? Are they talking kindly to the young ladies? What's going on in that space?
Well, I would say first, Mocha, don't send her to high school without having that conversation, honey, because everything you didn't learn at home, they will teach you in the streets, and in school in particular. But in terms of, it just depends. It depends on the model or the example that is at home. I have some kids who is quite apparent that they have someone in their circle at home that have taught them those gentleman things to do, like opening doors and so forth. And if I'm carrying a box in, they'll say, let me get that for you, Miss Stacy. And then I can tell the households that don't have that model and don't have that example, and they don't really expect it or jump out and just take the initiative to do those type things. Unfortunately, I have a culture consultant here at our building, and he's real big on those kind of things. So when we find students that are not experienced or well versed in that, we teach them the importance of it. I just think it depends basically on what's happening at home to what is put in you, and then it shows when you go out in the community. You have something that can spill out of you. For me, unfortunately, with the environment that I serve, I'm always looking for those traumas, because the trauma is what our children live in, and it has become the norm and such. And so those roles, when they're crossed because of the traumas that are happening within the households. So I'm looking for kids who are disconnected, depressed, have that lost sense of self, because at home, they're hearing their parents talk, their mother, or if they're in the home with their father and no one else, they're just hearing them talk about the bills and the pressures of the world, like things that kids shouldn't even be thinking and talking about. Like, why are you worrying about the light bill? Why are you worrying about, where you're going to get your next meal from? And so I'm spending a lot of time trying to fill those gaps in, and then finding what is needed and making sure that we can provide a model if the model isn't there.
Finding a model when the model isn't there. I can definitely tell you that building a model of your own is not always easy. I'm going to ask Pastor JT this question, then we're going to go out to a break and come back. Pastor JT, in finding that model, and I'm having a difficult trying to frame this question, because when we talk about boys and their engagement with girls, they often see things from television or video games that aren't necessarily appropriate. What is the right way for the village? And this is for all of our audience. What is the right way for the village to do some corrective behavior when we hear and see a young man calling a young lady, hey, ma, yo, babe, sis, you look good in those pants? I mean, there are just some things that should not come out of certain age groups' mouth, namely ages 6 to 15. So can you help us with languaging these levels of conversation?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm always, I guess in being a pastor, I'm always, trying to be a problem solver. And I have to always first try to identify the problem. And sadly enough, your question was, what can the village do? Sadly enough, those little boys probably picked that up from some of the inhabitants of the village. And so we are only byproducts of what we have been exposed to. So if this young man, so still to this day, I say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And I do that because my dad, who is 77 years old, still says, yes, sir, no, sir. And he's 77. And it's not too many people that would be older than him, but he's still saying that. So I picked that up from him. How my dad caters to my mom is the same way I cater to my wife. I picked that up from him. So now if these young boys are not exposed to that, going back to Dondre's point, if they are considered the man of the house and not seen as a male in the house, then they don't understand how to truly communicate to another girl, because at that point, their communication is not lateral to a girl. Their only reference point is being talked down to from their mother. Or even more dangerously, you could possibly have a young boy who could, on the outside, we could kind of see it looks like he's in a romantic relationship with his mom. So he's being taken care of. He's being catered to. He's sitting in the car when she's pumping gas. He gets to pick where they go eat every day.
Preach, sir.
But then on the back end, you see a young girl who grows up in a single parent home. And I think this is something that we got to address, because as we say, we don't know what our girls are going to have access to. We also got to say we don't know what our young boys are going to have access to, because we live in a time now, as Dr. Stacy mentioned about that word trauma. I teach a class at HPD talking about 2 police officers, and the title of the class is Building Trust After Trauma. And it talks about how colors of community here locally, how we have this traumatic experience with police officers. And that's why some of our reactions to police officers are the way they are. So when we hear the sirens, we already go into a panic because of the trauma that has been experienced before. Possibly not even trauma that we experienced, but it was passed down. So if you have a mother who's raising a daughter who just came out of a traumatic relationship, she now has the framework in the house to ensure that her daughter doesn't ever go through what she goes through. So now, as Dondre points out, his role with his son, she now becomes this drill sergeant with her daughter. And that is the reason why we have such a calloused group of young ladies that are growing up now. And we have such a delicate group of young men that are growing up right now. So now the question is that the roles have reversed. So the young man that should be the protector, he is being taught that his mom is the protector. So he is now looking to be protected. The young lady who is growing up in a single parent home, this mother is telling her, I don't want you to ever go through what I've gone through. So now this young girl, she is not being the dainty one with the easy bake oven and with a little baby doll. She is being taught to get it how you live. Do it for yourself. You don't need a man. So now we have this huge divide that has happened in our community, and no side really knows how to talk to each other, because they are picking up their language from who is raising them.
It is true that more is caught than taught. When we come back after the break, we're going to give all of our guests an opportunity to share some final words on what it looks like to really keep the community together, how our boys, our girls, our men, and our women can get back to this sense of community so that we can all have a sense of balance and a sense of peace when we're back after the break.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between
Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with rolling all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Rolling was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all. I can't about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. Let me tell you, the dynamics of family, they can take you out of here. Let me tell you, our guests today have really enlightened us about what it means to not only raise our boys, but to see how we're engaging our girls, how to have balance, how to set boundaries, how do we have the necessary conversations so that way we're raising our children in a way and in an environment that is conducive for positive growth going forward. I want to bring back all of our guests because I think it's important as we prepare to round out this segment that our audience hears from each of you about what are some of the next steps. And I'm going to start with Mocha, Stacey, Pastor JT, and then Dondre. So what are a few next steps that we should be taking, Mocha?
For me, I feel like a next step is to just continue to remember as a parent that you are your child's advocate. And in the beginning of the show, we talked a lot about those listening skills and just making sure that you are listening to your children so you're understanding what is going on in their life so that you can guide and direct them and possibly even pray for the proper mentor, because for some reason, these kids don't necessarily want to hear it from their own parents, but just that right mentor or person who can pour into their life might just be the person who can steer and guide them even better than mommy or daddy.
Thank you. Stacey.
I think a next step would be to look inward and have some self-reflection and just remember that if you are raising a child right now, ask yourself, is the experiences that I, as the adult, that I'm providing for my child, are they experiences that will assist my child in having the best childhood that they could have? And do I have the expectation on my child to understand that that's their only job in this world right now is to just be a child? Go to school and experience your childhood, live your best life as a child. Because when you do get grown and start paying bills and all that, you're going to say you want to go back there and it's already gone. So just go back and self-reflect and then make adjustments as you see fit.
Thank you so much. Pastor JT.
I guess one of my last, or I guess next steps would be one for the parent or parents. I think going back to what Stacey as well as Mocha said, one kind of figuring out inside, right? If there's anything that I can do better to ensure that I am being the best parent that I can be, and then dealing with that issue in you, and then making sure that you are modeling the desired behavior in front of your child that you would want them to extend when they leave the home. So I believe that most of this is not necessarily on the child. I believe that the responsibility happens to fall on the shoulders of the parent and have that real conversation with themselves. And then the last thing that I will say is don't be afraid of maybe enlisting the help of a counselor, family therapist, a pastor, somebody to talk to outside that may be able to be a non-biased party that can help you move forward.
So I'm going to give my next step before we go into a break. And then after our break, I'm asking Dondre Whitfield to give us our closing reflection for this segment. My comments are this. Next steps for our community, our village, our tribe is to keep the lines of communication open. I mean, honestly, it's not that difficult to sit down with someone and talk with them. We've got to learn as a community how to have these difficult conversations. When we come back after the break, Dondre Whitfield is going to give our final reflections.
our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built in.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years. I thought new phones were for new customers. We got iPhone 13s too, switched to Verizon 2 minutes ago.
Ours were busted, and we still got a shiny new one.
Check it out. So wait, everybody gets the same great deal.
I think that's the point.
iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. On any unlimited plan, starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. Stacey Owens, Mocha Lee, and Pastor JT have given us all some next steps on what it means to keep our village thriving and surviving. Right now, Dondre Whitfield is going to give us our reflections for the day.
You know, I have to go back to what we were talking about when our children go into dating, and then wrap the rest of it up. Sister Stacey said something about, what we don't teach our children at home, the streets will teach them. And that is absolutely right. So when we have or allow our child to date, as my daughter now, who is 17 years old, she's in that phase. I have told her, as I tell my son, whenever you have someone that is interested or that you are interested in, your job is to bring them here to our home, because our job is to give them a model that they can begin to mirror. As a father of a daughter, that boy has to come into my home, cross that threshold, sit down with me, tell me his intentions with my daughter. My job also is to have a relationship with him that's outside of hers, because I now become a bonus dad to him. I am now a second father figure to him. My job is to give him specific information and instruction about how to go about doing this if he does not know how. One of the things that I have, and I've done this already, I have spoken to that particular boy and said, look, there's only one way to stay in good graces with me. And that is, your job is to always remember that you are not allowed to abandon or abuse my daughter. I've spoken to my daughter and said, your job is to make sure that you do not intentionally agitate or aggravate this boy, particularly in a way that could be physical, because that will end badly. So these are the kinds of things that we rarely get. We rarely get a sit down of information and instruction. I already know that nature is going to take its course. So of course, my daughter is going to become interested in boys. A boy is going to become interested in her. If that is going to be the case, let's walk this out specifically. In every other area of life that we walk out greatly, we receive great information and instruction, and then receive accountability. So for everything that we want our child to do, we should be finding ways to give them information and instruction, and then give them loving but firm accountability.
Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. I hope that our audience has enjoyed our series this month on boyhood, manhood, and family dynamics. All of these things are responsible and in a way for us actually to stay accountable to how we become balanced in our lives and how we can move the village forward. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Bye now.